What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Griffin Palmer. Again, I'm joined by nobody, but what are you going to do? I'm always going to be here for you guys. It's just bad scheduling is what I guess it comes down to. Technical difficulties, this whole move to this new studio, just the whole thing. It's just taking a lot more time and effort than we thought it would, but it's coming along. Everything hopefully should be good to go soon. The guys will be back. And, yeah, so that just leaves me. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer. And today we're going to be talking our studs and duds from week number 9, top waiver wire targets for week number 10, all the top headlines, some around the league. And, as always, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on YouTube. We are on plenty of other streaming services. Just simply search for the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. Honestly, you could leave out the podcast, The Fantasy Football Fanatics, and you'll probably find us in most places. Of course, if you want to subscribe to the show on Twitter, that's the easiest way to interact with the show, get news, updates, and, just have a good chance of having your questions answered. Guys, we get thousands of questions a week. It is insane how many questions we get, and usually it always seems to happen in bunches. We'll get it one here, one there, then all of a sudden we'll get hundreds over the course of like an hour and a half. We do our best to get to them all. Bottom line is we just can't get to all of them, but I promise you we do our best. So you can submit your questions again on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. You can submit them via email to thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com. You can submit them on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Like I said, basically, you can find us all over. And most importantly of all, of course, if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You get yourselves bonus episodes, bonus perks, just a lot of really good stuff every single week. So I recommend it, guys. It's the best way you can help the show out, unless you want to go a step further and also give us a rating and give us a review. If you guys do that on iTunes, that helps the show out just astronomically. With that, let's quickly fire through some of our studs and duds from week number 9. Lots of duds. We're not going to dwell on it too much, but we'll start with our studs like we always do. At the quarterback position, a guy who I was telling everybody, stream him, start him. You won't be disappointed. And here he is, your top quarterback of the week, Jared Goff, 36.44 fantasy points. He did it in 14 completions. 14 completions, 311 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Just so you guys aren't just like, oh, well, 14 completions on how many attempts? 22. He was insanely efficient. So, yeah, Jared Goff, just a monster and a decent streaming candidate again next week. We'll talk about that. Carson Wentz, 32.76. He was good for just under 200 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. Tyrod Taylor, another guy I was telling people to stream in more shallow leagues, 30.9 fantasy points. He had a huge workload, 40 passing attempts. That's a lot. It's not astronomical. We see plenty of times they get over 50, but Jared Goff did in 22, Carson Wentz did in 27, Tyrod Taylor 40, so, the other two guys were just abnormally efficient. He did have 2 touchdowns there, and he also had a rushing touchdown to, 3 touchdowns total to cap it off with 35 rushing yards, which is what you expect from Tyrod Taylor. So if you started one of these guys, you had a very good week. 2 of those guys were guys I recommended to most people to stream. So, hey, it's what we do. Let's go to the running backs for CJ's start of the week. Alvin Kamara, 25.2 fantasy points. He has been ridiculously productive and efficient over the last few weeks. Guys, there are just strange things in fantasy football, and Alvin Kamara being as incredibly good as he's been, while Mark Ingram has been so incredibly good as he's been, it's kind of insane. We were not expecting this to be a running attack-led offense, but yet here we are. Adrian Peterson gone, Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram feasting. So Alvin Kamara, your top fantasy producing running back on the week, 10 rushing attempts for 68 yards and a touchdown. Also caught another 6 passes for 84 yards and another touchdown. So there you go. Corey Clement, a guy who you're probably wondering, who's that? He is one of just a ton of running backs in Philadelphia. 24.6 fantasy points, 12 attempts, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also caught a ball for 15 yards and a third touchdown. Crazy productive, crazy efficient. Pump the brakes, guys. He is not going to do this again. Jay Ajayi, he's there. He's getting more involved. Other people are getting healthy. This was a monster performance, but don't expect it going forward. And then Todd Gurley coming back from the bye week, being just awesome yet again. 22.4 fantasy points, capping off to this point of the season what has just been a unbelievable performance and resurgence from the third-year running back. 16 attempts, 59 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns, another 45 yards receiving. Great performance there. At the wide receiver position, T.Y. Hilton shocking everybody. 29.5 fantasy points on 8 targets. He hauled in 6 catches for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Houston Texans defense is not what we thought they were going into the year. We expected them to be a pretty darn elite defense. Has not been the case. Alshon Jeffrey, who unfortunately was CJ's sit of the week, 20.5 fantasy points. He had 6 catches on 11 targets for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, you just didn't expect that against the Broncos. And then Robert Woods, 19 fantasy points. He went 4 for 5 for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, man. That Los Angeles Rams offense, just as a whole, has been monstrous this season. So, I mean, if you have any of these guys, you're feeling pretty darn good this week. And if you want a bonus wide receiver, of course, Marvin Jones went off on Monday Night Football. So, yeah, those were your top-performing wide receivers of the week. And then your top-performing tight ends of the week, Julius Thomas finally having a game. 12 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, 13.3 fantasy points, 7 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And then Evan Ingram, this is what he's going to do because he's getting ridiculous volume. He's going to break that rookie production kind of cap that we always see on fantasy tight ends. 13 points, 4 catches on 10 targets. So not super efficient, but, I mean, volume, guys. Volume is everything. Volume is key for consistency as well. 70 yards and a touchdown. So those are the guys who definitely helped you out this week. Some notable duds. Just run down this list pretty quickly. Couple of quarterbacks who really ruined your week. Jameis Winston, 3.48 fantasy points. And he's gonna miss some time. We'll talk about that. Andy Dalton, my sit of the week, 5.34 fantasy points. There you go. And Kirk Cousins, 8.28 fantasy points. Really, all these guys let you down pretty substantially. Running backs who let you down, notable ones. Doug Martin, 0.7. That sunk me in more leagues than I want to admit. Oh, Doug Martin. LaShawn McCoy, we saw this on Thursday Night Football, of course, 2.5, a shocking letdown there. And DeMarco Murray, banged up, that's what seems to be the case throughout the vast majority of his career, 4.1 fantasy points. Some wide receivers, A.J. Green getting himself ejected from the game for fighting, 0.6 fantasy points. That helps nobody. Mike Evans should have been ejected. Same situation here, 1.3. And Terrell Pryor, 1.7. Some other notable guys. Emmanuel Sanders coming back from injury, didn't get it done. 3 points. Will Fuller showing that not only was it not sustainable, but definitely not with a change of quarterback. 3.2 fantasy points. Expect that to be more of the norm going forward. Deshaun Jackson, who has not been able to get any type of rhythm with Jameis Winston this season, 3.3. And then Amari Cooper still kind of falling back to earth in what was a great matchup, 5.8 fantasy points. I mean, obviously not as bad as 0.6 or anything like that from some of these other guys, but still not what you would expect from your superstar wide receiver. I can talk. And then some notable tight ends. O.J. Howard. This was, again, both those two idiots love this guy. And I'm not saying he's not unbelievably talented, but this is the situation that he's in. He was not even the second tight end on his team. He was the third tight end as far as fantasy finishes go. He was good for, wait for it, negative 1.4 fantasy points. Guys, that's going to be the norm. I don't know how else to say it. Cameron Braid had a bad week as well, but Luke Stalker, does that name ring a bell to any of you guys? It probably won't. He was the only one who had a decent week because he went for 13 yards at the tight end position in Tampa Bay and a touchdown. So, yeah, that's why I just don't believe in O.J. Howard. I love the talent, but they're using him as a blocker. His usage week to week, incredibly inconsistency. That's why when they were, well, who was it? It was Jason's target at the waiver wire position. I was saying, don't do it. And I threw all these stats at you, and then they tried to misdirect you guys by pointing out other people who have been underperforming, which I still don't know why they were doing that. So, look, O.J. Howard, incredibly talented. He has got a very, very bright future in this league. It's just his rookie year. He's in a massive committee in a role that they're not using him heavily. He'll probably give you a couple more big weeks this year, and I said that would be the case coming into the year. But week to week, you never know. It's just not a volume share that is worth banking on. If you're in a crazy deep league, 2 tight end league, you can hold him if you want, but I don't like it. It's a bad situation, and there's no real indication as to who the guy's going to be in any given week. Jason Witten, 0.5, really big letdown there. And then Austin Seferian-Jenkins, we saw this Thursday Night Football, a guy I've been preaching on for a while now. He's had 2 dud weeks in a row, but also 2 weeks in a row, he's had a touchdown called back. So if he had a touchdown that they said he pushed off, I didn't see it. So he finished with 2 points. If he had gotten that touchdown, he would have gotten another, I think it was 20 yards and a touchdown. So we're looking at this week as a top performer instead of a really let you down type performance. So I'm still okay with Austin Seferian-Jenkins. If you want to dump him for one of these more upside plays, go for it. I mean, that is the nature of the tight end position in the league this year, but these things do happen. Let's move to our top headlines from around the league, and we'll fire through these pretty rapid fire, Lee. That was bad English, but sorry, bear with me. Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Kirk Cutter said that he is shutting down quarterback Jameis Winston for, quote, several weeks while his throwing shoulder heals. That means that Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the starter for the foreseeable future, the next couple weeks at least. So, if you are a Jameis Winston owner, start making plans. I would start streaming. That's what I do, and it's worked out incredibly well. It is more difficult. Pay attention to the matchups. That's what I will say. And we give you guys some good options here as well. We talk streamers more on the Patreon show, though. Denver Broncos are to stick with quarterback Brock Osweiler as their starter for week number 10. Those are words that nobody wants to hear. But, I mean, Trevor Siemian, he has not been great either. This is just an offensive dumpster fire in Denver. Running back news, the hearing for Ezekiel Elliott, Dallas Cowboys running back, of course, injunction is set to be ruled on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so we should know the future of Ezekiel Elliott, I guess, for the future. There's so many things that are coming and going. This is why this is the extent that I'm going to talk about it. We will know more on Thursday, so we will be able to talk to you more about it on Friday's show. That's all I'm saying. I am so over talking about legal proceedings with Ezekiel Elliott. We're not lawyers. We're fantasy analysts, so no speculation. Just going to give you guys the news as we get it. Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Mularkey said that DeMarco Murray is dealing with a knee injury. The expectation is this could hamper him going into Week 10 and possibly beyond. That's DeMarco Murray, guys. I traded for him in a league, and it's been something that I've regretted. Timeshare, constantly injured. It was an upgrade over what I had, so I guess it's worked out for me. But, yeah, this is DeMarco Murray. He has more seasons like this than he doesn't throughout his career, and this is what we were preaching caution on going into it. So we'll let you guys know when we know more. In wide receiver news, Tampa Bay wide receiver Mike Evans has been suspended for 1 game. He is appealing the suspension. This is for fighting, though he was not flagged on. Well, he was not penalized on the play, but he is suspended. Not penalized, wasn't ejected, is suspended. There we go. But according to news from official league sources, no other players are going to face suspensions this week, including A.J. Green and a couple other players who got into full-on fistfights. So I don't know what the standard is. AJ Green, though, he sunk so many weeks for so many people, and I have him in so many leagues, so I couldn't be more frustrated. Let's go to Atlanta, where the Falcons, wow. Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones suffered a lower leg injury. He is expected to be limited at practice this week, so Julio, always banged up, and he has been letting a lot of people down this year, as I warned he probably would. Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Dez Bryant is listed as having a, quote, minor knee injury, and that is not in place of, but in addition to his ankle injury he suffered on Sunday. He is currently listed as day-to-day. Other sources are saying that that's probably not the case, but that's the official word that we're hearing, so we will update you guys as we know more, but expect Dez Bryant to be at the very least limited in Week 10. And then Cleveland Browns wide receiver Josh Gordon will return to the team today on Tuesday. His future should be pretty interesting to track with that team. And last bit of news, we'll go to the tight end position, where San Francisco 49ers tight end George Kittle is already ruled out for Week 10 via head coach Mike Shanahan. So there's that. And the Denver Broncos have placed tight end Jake Butt on season-ending injured reserve. So if you're in deeper leagues, those are two guys that you will not be able to rely on going forward, at least not in the immediate future in George Kittle's case. So with that, let's move on to our topic of the day. Like I said, this is going to be a speed show, guys. I'm the only one here. Top waiver wire targets for week number 10. And at the running back position, we have a couple guys here. I love CJ's guy, Kenyon Drake. He's taken in only 30% of leagues. He is going to be the lead back there, though his backup is Jason's target, Damian Williams, who I like a lot in PPR leagues, both picking up the slack of the now gone Jay Ajayi, and then my guy, Dion Lewis, a guy who you'll probably be able to get on the cheap if you're in free agent acquisition budget leagues, because coming off a bye week, people tend to forget about those players. Only owned in 18.5% of leagues. Yeah, I know it's a committee there. I know that there's a lot of other guys getting work. I know James White is being used heavily in the pass game. Rex Burkhead does a lot of similar things. Dion Lewis is the guy they're paying the most to be there. He is a guy that they like a lot. He's been the lead back as far as volume, and coming off the bye week, I think that they are going to realize that, because he's also been the most efficient runner there the last couple of weeks. So I like Dion Lewis's chances, especially if you are facing more bye week problems or injuries going forward. He is a flex-worthy running back who could easily turn around and give you running back 2 with running back 1 upside production. Wide receiver targets. Robbie Anderson turning into a full-blown fantasy wide receiver 1. He has been a monster the last couple of weeks. He's been, taking a lot of that production away from Austin Seferian-Jenkins, though, again, Seferian-Jenkins, if he had those touchdowns that he was called back for, we wouldn't even be saying that. So, the Jets' offense just being productive in general. But, yeah, Robbie Anderson, only taken in 14.4% of leagues, and he is definitely the top wide receiver on this team, bar none. But that was our thought process coming into the year, but he is delivering with production. Robert Woods, CJ's guy, I love this one as well. 7.5% of leagues is all he's owned in. Easily the number 2 target in this or on this team, and obviously a speed threat as well. And Sterling Shepard, owned in 22.7% of leagues. We've been saying this for weeks now. Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Marshall, done for the year. That leaves Sterling Shepard as the top wide receiver on this team, and he's owned in less than a quarter of leagues. Volume alone is getting the job done with him. And then tight end targets of the week. My guy, Tyler Kroft, 8.3% of leagues is all that he's owned in. Most people, I guess, are forgetting that Tyler Eifert's done for the year. So Tyler Kroft is picking up that slack, and he got it done with yardage alone. Had a decent week last week. Tyler Higbee is CJ's target of the week. I mean, a guy, again, nobody's looking at, only owned in 0.8% of leagues on an offense that is productive, to say the least. And then CJ's guy is David Njoku, 3.3% of leagues. Not as wild about this one, but he is crazy talented, and he is productive. Not overly consistently, but, that's a rookie tight end for you. Hit or miss, but I do love David Njoku this week. Nobody picked Evan Ingram? Is he owned in too many leagues? Check to make sure Evan Ingram and Austin Seferian-Jenkins aren't owned either. Those are guys who are just awesome. So yeah, believe it or not, that's going to do it for us today. Please make sure you guys tune in on Friday when we will be back. The guys, knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood around me, should be back as well. We should have our audio, music, and sound effects, and maybe even the camera. That would be exciting, right, guys? To see, well, you only see my face, but maybe I can convince CJ to get to the new studio and record. That would be just perfect and ideal, but, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, we'll, of course, be talking all your starts and sits for week number 10 on Friday. Please make sure you guys subscribe wherever you are listening. We greatly appreciate the feedback, and it helps the show out with those ratings unbelievably, more than we could ever say. If you guys want us to be able to keep doing what we're doing and be able to afford to put the studio together faster and upgrade the show and do all these things that we have these aspirations of doing, iTunes reviews are a huge way to do that and help the show out. So simply head over to iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review. Greatly appreciated. Stitcher as well, if that is where you listen, is also helpful. But iTunes goes out to more search engines, so we do appreciate that. Just keep coming back every Tuesday and Friday. We are a year-round show, guys. So much stuff to get to and to get through as we try to bring you home fantasy titles. That's why we do what we do. On Facebook, you can follow the show, as we mentioned before, at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. And if you want to submit your questions, interact with the show, or just, say, hey, what's up? On Twitter, at the FF Fanatics, or individually, I'm at GPalmerFFF. So again, triple F, both cases, the FF Fanatics, 3 Fs there, or GPalmerFFF. And again, if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Get yourself bonus shows every single week, along with many other perks as well. All right, so with that, we are out of here. Everyone, take care. Have a great week. We'll see you on the Patreon show. If not, we will see you on Friday. Bye.